The sun hung low in the sky, painting the wasteland in shades of orange and red. Dust swirled in the hot wind, and the distant mountains seemed almost alive with shadow. Kale struggled to carry his mother, Celera, across the rough ground. She was huge, even for a dragon, but her albino scales were pale and dull, almost like bone, and her body was weak. Each step Kale took made her tremble, and he could feel her shallow breaths against his chest. He whispered her name, hoping she could hear him through the pain. "They're just ahead, Mother." "Please, hold on," he said, his voice trembling. His claws dug into the dirt, leaving deep marks in the ground, but Kale didn't stop. Every mile seemed longer than the last, every gust of wind harder to fight. The world was silent except for the dry crunch of his steps and Celera's faint, rattling breaths. Kale had heard stories of humans, both good and bad. Some were cruel hunters, taking dragons for their scales or their bones. Others were clever and brave, capable of great feats. He hoped the human mechanic, Rylan, would be one of the good ones. Rylan lived in the small settlement near the edge of the wasteland, a place where humans repaired machines and built things no one else could. Kale had seen humans create wonders, even machines that could fly and think. Perhaps they could heal his mother too. When the settlement came into view, Kale's heart pounded. Smoke rose from chimneys, and faint lights glowed in the windows. He could see figures moving between buildings, carrying tools and parts, repairing what the harsh desert had broken. Some humans stopped and stared as Kale entered, their eyes widening at the sight of him and his mother. Whispers spread quickly. An albino dragon in the human town? Many had never seen one this close. Kale lowered Celera gently to the ground, her body barely able to support herself. Her eyes, pale like ice, blinked slowly. She lifted her head slightly and let out a soft, weak rumble. Kale stroked her snout, feeling the sharp ridges under his claws. She looked so fragile, and it made him furious that anyone had ever thought dragons were dangerous. She was his mother, and she deserved care, not fear. Rylan appeared quickly, a tall human with grease-stained hands and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. He paused for a moment, studying Celera carefully, then looked at Kale. "She's alive," he said softly. "But she's very weak." Kale nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Please, help her. She's all I have left." Rylan stepped closer, examining Celera's body and breathing patterns. He knelt down and touched her scales lightly, testing for heat, for life. "I've never treated a dragon like this," he admitted. "But I've seen enough strange things to know, we can try." His voice had confidence, even calm, and Kale felt a flicker of hope. Some humans in the town watched from a distance. A few stepped back, wary of the dragon's size and teeth. Others whispered, voices full of awe. Kale noticed their hesitation but ignored it. His mother's life mattered more than human fear. He could see Rylan was already thinking, calculating. The human's mind worked quickly, and Kale trusted it. Celera made a soft, weak noise, almost like a sigh, and Kale held her closer. She lifted her head slightly, enough to see the sky above. Her wings, once strong and powerful, lay folded and limp against her sides. Her scales reflected the dying sunlight faintly, a pale shimmer that reminded Kale of how beautiful she had always been. She had carried him through storms, taught him to fly, and protected him from predators. And now, she needed him to be strong. Rylan turned to Kale. "We need to move her inside. I have tools, machines, and some medicines I've been experimenting with. It won't be easy, but I've never given up on anything before." Kale felt a mix of fear and relief. The humans had a chance to prove they could do something no one else could. "Thank you," Kale whispered, his voice breaking. "Please, save her." With Rylan's help, Kale lifted Celera carefully. The human's arms were strong, and together they carried her toward the workshop. The town watched in silence, sensing that something extraordinary was happening. Some humans exchanged glances, suddenly aware that their lives might change because a human had chosen to risk everything for a dragon. As they reached the workshop, Kale looked back at the settlement, feeling both fear and hope. this was the moment that could decide everything. His mother's life rested in human hands, and he prayed that courage, skill, and heart would be enough. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the dusty town, and inside the workshop, Rylan prepared for a task he had never imagined, to heal a dragon. Kale set Celera down on a blanket carefully, watching as the human began his work. Every tool, every adjustment, every glance was full of determination. Kale could feel his heart racing, hope and fear mixing together. For the first time since they had begun the journey, he dared to believe. Humans were strange, fragile creatures, but somehow, they might be strong enough to save his mother. Rylan stepped back from Celera and studied her carefully. He had worked on machines that could think, repair, and fight, but never on a living creature like this. Her body was unlike anything he had seen. The pale, almost translucent scales reflected the dim light of the workshop, and beneath them, he could see faint shadows of her bones. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. "This is harder than I thought," Rylan muttered, mostly to himself. Kale knelt beside his mother, his claws resting lightly on her wing. "Please, you can do it," he whispered. "You're human. You can fix things no one else can." Rylan's eyes softened as he looked at the young dragon. "It's not like fixing a broken engine, Kale. But maybe I can combine what I know with what I have here. It won't be easy, and it might hurt a little, but it's better than doing nothing." He turned to the table behind him. Tools, wires, metal parts, and glowing vials were scattered across it. Some were human technology, some were experimental devices he had been building for emergencies. He picked up a small, delicate-looking instrument and examined it closely. "If I can stabilize her heart and restore her energy, she might survive the parasite that's draining her life." Kale's eyes widened. "Parasite? What do you mean?" Rylan shook his head. "It's strange, alien biology. It's feeding off her life force and also affects machines nearby. If we don't remove it, she won't last the night." Kale swallowed hard, his claws gripping his mother's scales. "Then, we have to try. Whatever it takes." Rylan nodded and got to work. He attached small sensors to Celera's chest, wires glowing softly as they connected to a device that pulsed with energy. He measured her heartbeat, her breathing, and the faint flow of life in her veins. "This is delicate," he murmured. "I have to balance her energy with this device. Too strong, it could hurt her. Too weak, she'll die." The workshop was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and Celera's weak breathing. Kale never left her side. He whispered stories, soft tales of his childhood, of flying through storms with his mother, of the days when her wings had been strong enough to carry him across mountains. "You've always protected me, Mother," he said. "Now it's my turn to protect you." Rylan worked tirelessly, soldering wires, adjusting circuits, and mixing glowing vials into a thick liquid that he injected carefully into Celera's veins. Each movement was precise, careful, full of human focus and determination. Sweat ran down his face, and his hands were steady, despite the risk. Kale watched in awe. Humans were fragile, but Rylan's mind and courage were strong in ways dragons rarely saw. Hours passed. Celera's body twitched and shivered. Sometimes her chest sank lower, her breathing weaker, and Kale's claws trembled as he tried to comfort her. "Stay with us, Mother," he whispered, tears rolling down his scales. "Please, stay." Rylan paused for a moment and looked at Kale. "She's holding on, but the parasite is stubborn. I'll need more energy to push it out. Are you ready?" Kale nodded without hesitation. "Do whatever you need. I trust you." Rylan adjusted a panel on the machine, causing a soft blue light to bathe Celera's scales. The energy flowed from the device into her body, and Kale could feel a small warmth spreading through her. The parasite reacted, writhing within her, but Rylan's invention kept it contained. Slowly, Celera's breathing became more even. The faint flicker of life returned to her eyes. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Kale felt hope for the first time since they had begun the journey. Rylan wiped his hands on a rag, glancing at the young dragon. She's responding, but she's still weak. I need to monitor her for the night. If the energy stabilizes, she'll survive. Kale let out a shaky breath, pressing his head against his mother's snout. She blinked slowly at him, and a soft rumble escaped her throat, a sound Kale hadn't heard in days. It was weak, but it was life. Outside, the townspeople watched the light from the workshop glow through the windows. Some whispered to each other in awe. Humans had chosen to help a creature no one else dared touch. They had risked everything for a dragon, and some of them could feel something shift inside themselves, a mixture of hope, pride, and disbelief. Kale looked up at Rylan, his eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you," he said softly. "I don't know how I can ever repay you." Rylan smiled faintly, tired but determined. "You don't have to. Just make sure she survives, Kale. That's all that matters." The night grew darker, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter, reflecting in Solara's faintly glowing scales. Kale stayed by her side, holding her gently, feeling her heartbeat slowly strengthen under the touch of human skill and determination. For the first time, Kale understood something he had never truly believed: humans were fragile, yes, but they were brave, clever, and capable of miracles. Tonight, they were the ones fighting to save a dragon, a creature far beyond their kind. And somehow, that made Kale's heart swell with hope. Outside, the wind carried whispers through the settlement, and somewhere in the distance, a small spark of awe and respect for humans began to grow. Solara's eyes flickered open slightly, and Kale knew that, for the first time since her sickness began, she had a chance to live. The workshop was quiet, except for the soft hum of the machines and Solara's faint, uneven breathing. Kale watched every move Rylan made, fascinated by how the humans' hands worked so quickly yet so carefully. Rylan adjusted a small panel, twisted a glowing wire, and tested a sensor attached to Solara's chest. Every movement was precise, like a dance he had practiced his whole life. Kale had never seen anything like it. Humans were small, fragile, and seemingly weak, but in this moment, their minds and courage were stronger than anything he had imagined. "This part here," Rylan said, pointing at a thin tube that pulsed with soft light, "is going to stabilize her heart rhythm. But I have to sync it perfectly with her own energy. One mistake, and it could hurt her." He didn't finish the sentence, but Kale understood. Mistakes could cost his mother her life. Kale's claws itched to help, to do something, but all he could do was watch and wait. He whispered softly to Solara, stroking her pale scales with care. "Stay with us, Mother. Humans can fix this. I know they can." Rylan took a deep breath, then attached a small, glowing device to Solara's chest. The device hummed softly, sending tiny pulses of energy into her body. Kale saw her wings twitch slightly, and a faint warmth spread through her scales. The parasite inside her hissed in reaction, a dark, writhing shadow that tried to fight the energy. But Rylan's human ingenuity was faster, smarter. He adjusted a dial on the device, increasing the energy flow just enough to weaken the parasite without hurting Solara. "It's working," Rylan murmured, his eyes scanning data on a small screen. Numbers, graphs, and strange symbols moved quickly, tracking Solara's vitals. "Her heart is stabilizing. Just a little more, and she'll be strong enough to fight off the parasite on her own." Kale's heart leapt. He could feel the hope building inside him, stronger than fear. The humans were fragile, yes, but their courage and intelligence made them unstoppable in ways dragons rarely understood. He realized that humans had a kind of strength that wasn't physical, it was something deeper, something that could face impossible odds and keep going. Rylan paused and looked at Kale. "I need more power to finish this. Do you have any stored energy crystals? Something that can feed this device without burning out?" Kale nodded and went to the small bag he carried. Inside were a few glowing shards, remnants of energy fields he had collected on their journey. Rylan carefully inserted the shards into the device, and the hum grew louder, stronger, filling the room with a soft, blue glow. Solara's chest rose and fell more evenly, her breathing less shallow. The faint light in her eyes grew brighter. Kale could hardly contain his awe. "I've never seen a human do anything like this," he whispered. "It's incredible." Ryland smiled faintly, though exhaustion showed in his eyes. "We've faced worse than this before. Machines, storms, failures. But we never give up. That's what makes humans strong. We don't always have power or size, but we have courage, determination, and ingenuity." Hours passed. Ryland adjusted wires, added tiny injections of nutrients, and monitored the parasite as it thrashed weakly inside Celera. Each time the parasite tried to fight back, Ryland countered with a careful adjustment, always precise, always patient. Kale realized the parasite was strong, clever, but Ryland's mind was faster. The human was outsmarting a creature that had thrived for centuries. Kale leaned close to his mother. "You're going to be okay, Mother. Humans are helping you. I promise." Celera made a faint, soft rumble, and Kale felt the vibration under his claws. It was weak, but it was life. Ryland looked exhausted, but he didn't stop. "Almost there," he said. "Just a little more. We need to push the parasite out completely." He adjusted the device one last time, focusing all the energy into a tiny, controlled pulse. The parasite writhed violently, then shrank, then vanished, leaving Celera's body free. Kale gasped. You did it." Celera stirred, lifting her head slightly. Her eyes glowed softly, brighter than before. She let out a long, low rumble, the sound of life returning. Kale's claws trembled as he pressed against her scales, tears rolling down his face. "Mother, you're alive." The workshop seemed to glow with energy as Ryland stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "She's alive," he said, almost in disbelief himself. "It's not perfect yet. She's still weak, and we'll have to monitor her closely. But the parasite is gone, and her heart, it's stronger than before." Kale looked at the human, awe and gratitude flooding his heart. I never thought humans could do something like this." "You saved her, you saved my mother." Ryland shook his head. "It wasn't just me. You stayed by her side, kept her calm. That mattered. Humans can be clever and brave, but even we need heart. That's what really makes us strong." Outside the workshop, some of the townspeople peeked in through the windows. They whispered to each other, amazed by what they saw. A human had healed a dragon, something no one in living memory had ever done. Their fear turned to respect, and some felt pride swelling in their chests. Humans were fragile, yes, but they had courage, ingenuity, and determination that could face the impossible. Kale pressed his forehead against Celera's snout. "Thank you, human. You've given her a chance, and you've given us hope." Ryland nodded, tired but satisfied. "Now we keep her safe. That's the next challenge. But tonight we've done something amazing." For the first time in days, Kale felt relief, hope, and awe all at once. Humans were small, fragile, and different, but tonight, they had done something dragons thought impossible. And Kale knew that this moment would be remembered, not just for what had been healed, but for the courage, skill, and heart of one human who refused to give up. The night outside deepened, but inside the workshop, light glowed softly, reflecting off Celera's pale scales. Life had returned, and human ingenuity had won the day. Kale couldn't stop smiling. Somehow, he knew this was only the beginning. The first light of dawn crept through the workshop windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Celera's chest rose steadily now, her breaths deeper and stronger than they had been in days. Kale sat beside her, watching every twitch of her wings, every flicker of her pale, albino scales. The soft hum of Ryland's monitoring devices filled the room, but for Kale, the most important sound was the faint, steady rhythm of his mother's heartbeat. Ryland leaned back against a workbench, exhausted but satisfied. He had worked through the night, combining human engineering with careful observation of Celera's alien biology. His hands were raw, his clothes smeared with grease and strange fluids, but he didn't care. every move he had made was worth it. Celara was alive. Kale reached out, touching Solara's snout gently. Her eyes flickered open, revealing pale irises that glowed softly in the morning light. She blinked slowly, as if testing the world, testing whether it was real. When she recognized Kale, a low, rumbling sound escaped her throat, a mixture of relief, recognition, and love. Kale pressed his forehead against hers, tears flowing freely. "You're okay, you're alive," he whispered. "I told you humans could help you." Celara lifted her wings slightly, testing their strength. They didn't have their full power yet, but the movement was enough to bring a small, hopeful rumble from deep in her chest. Kale could feel the vibration beneath his claws. The sound filled the workshop, echoing off the walls, almost like a song of life returning. Rylan watched quietly, pride and awe in his eyes. "She's coming back," he said softly. "Her body is strong enough to keep fighting now. The parasite is gone, and her heart is stable. She'll heal fully, given time." Kale smiled, but the worry in his chest hadn't completely left. He had seen so many creatures die, so many lives end before they should have. This moment felt fragile, delicate, as if it could shatter at any second. He pressed his claws more firmly against Solara's scales, offering comfort and warmth. "Stay with us, Mother. We need you." Celara lifted her head fully and blinked at Rylan. For a brief moment, Kale thought he saw recognition in her gaze. She had sensed the human's courage, his cleverness, and the heart that had refused to give up. In that instant, she understood something Kale had only begun to comprehend. Humans were small, fragile, and limited in ways dragons were not, but they could do incredible things when they refused to quit. Rylan smiled faintly. "It's rare, even for humans, to save something like her," he admitted. "Most would have given up. Most wouldn't even try. But, you have to fight. You have to use your mind, your skill, and your heart. That's what makes us strong." Kale nodded, feeling a swell of pride for the human who had risked everything. He realized that strength wasn't just about size or claws or wings. Sometimes, it was about courage, intelligence, and determination. Rylan had proven that tonight. As the morning light grew brighter, Solara's eyes flickered over the workshop, her gaze resting on Kale and Rylan in turn. She lowered her head slightly, letting Kale touch her snout again. Her wings stretched a little more, a sign of renewed life. Kale's heart soared. The first real hope he had felt in days had returned. But the awakening brought more than relief. As Solara's body recovered, she emitted a soft, glowing pulse of energy, faint but unmistakable. Kale felt it vibrate through the floor, a quiet signal that spread beyond the town. Rylan noticed it too, his brow furrowing slightly. "That's not normal," he said quietly. "That pulse, it's broadcasting something. Other dragons might feel it." Kale's claws dug into the floor. "Other dragons? You mean, the elders?" Rylan nodded slowly. "They could sense it. Your mother's recovery, her strength returning, it's a signal to them. They'll come. And they'll know that humans were involved." Kale's heart skipped a beat. He had heard stories of dragon elders, massive, ancient, intelligent, and often unforgiving. If they arrived expecting hostility, the humans could be in danger. But at the same time, there was a flicker of pride. Humans had saved a dragon's life, faced impossible odds, and done something no one else could. Celara lifted her head higher, testing her wings again. The energy pulse that had triggered the elder's attention flowed faintly from her body, shimmering like pale light on her albino scales. She let out a long, low rumble, one of both gratitude and strength regained. Kale pressed his claws to her chest, feeling life and energy returning. Rylan observed quietly. "The elders will be curious, maybe even impressed. Humans have shown them something they didn't expect. That's rare." Kale smiled, a mixture of hope and worry on his face. "I hope they see us as allies, not threats," he said. "Humans risked everything for her. I want them to understand that." Celera made another soft rumble, almost like agreement, and shifted closer to Kale. He hugged her lightly, feeling her strength returning slowly but steadily. She wasn't fully healed yet, but the worst was over. The impossible task had been completed. Outside, the wind carried faint whispers through the town. Some of the townspeople paused, sensing the extraordinary presence of the dragon's energy. Humans had healed a creature no one believed they could. Some whispered about courage, skill, and determination. Others simply stared, awed by what they had witnessed. Kale looked at Rylan, his heart full. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You gave my mother a chance, and you've changed everything." Rylan nodded, exhaustion and pride written across his face. Humans do what we must. Sometimes, it's impossible, until someone tries. And as Solara's eyes glowed softly in the dawn light, Kale understood the truth of that statement. Life had returned, hope had returned, and humans had shown strength beyond what anyone expected. The awakening was more than just Solara's recovery, it was a sign that humans could face the impossible and succeed. The first light of day bathed the workshop in pale gold. For Kale, for Celera, and for Rylan, the world felt new, alive, and full of possibility. The sun rose fully over the settlement, spilling golden light across the dusty streets. The wind was calm now, carrying with it the faint scent of metal, dust, and something else, something powerful. Kale watched from the workshop doorway, his claws gripping the edge as a low vibration grew beneath his feet. Celera stirred beside him, her albino scales gleaming faintly in the morning sun. She had grown stronger overnight, but even she tensed, sensing what was coming. Rylan joined Kale at the door, wiping grease from his hands. "You feel that?" he asked quietly. "They're close." "The elders." Kale nodded, his heart pounding. Stories of dragon elders were legendary, giants of unimaginable power, older than mountains, wiser than humans could ever dream. Many who saw them never lived to tell the tale. And now, they were approaching. The first shadow fell across the workshop yard, enormous and heavy. Kale's eyes widened. One elder landed in the center of the town, its scales darker than night, its eyes glowing with a sharp, ancient intelligence. Its wings stretched wider than the tallest building, and the air trembled with the force of its presence. Then another followed, then another, until 5 elders surrounded the settlement, each one massive, each one watching, waiting. Kale swallowed hard. "Mother, they've come," he whispered. Celera lifted her head, her glowing eyes meeting the gaze of the nearest elder. The ground beneath her trembled slightly as her wings flexed, small but purposeful. Rylan stepped forward, standing between Kale and the elders, his posture calm but firm. He didn't raise his hands in fear, didn't falter. The townspeople gathered behind him, hesitant, wide-eyed, watching the dragons that could crush them all. And yet, there was something about the human mechanic stance that made Kale's heart lift. Humans were small, yes, but Rylan's courage made them seem larger than life. The largest elder tilted its head, studying Rylan, then Kale, then Celera. The air vibrated with a low, resonant hum, almost a voice, though no human could speak it. Kale felt it in his chest, a language older than the mountains themselves. The elder's gaze lingered on Celera, then softened slightly, a signal Kale had learned to recognize from observing dragons for years: respect. Kale stepped forward, trembling but determined. "Mother is alive because of him," he said, his voice strong. "Because of Rylan. He healed you, he saved your life." The elder's eyes flickered, and for a long, tense moment, the town held its breath. Then the dragon lowered its massive head slowly, almost reverently. One by one, the other elders did the same, kneeling slightly to the ground. Kale felt awe wash over him. These were creatures older than cities, older than the mountains themselves, and they were acknowledging a human. Rylan blinked, clearly as stunned as Kale. They're kneeling," he muttered. Kale nodded. "They know. They know what you did. You risked everything for my mother. You've earned their respect." The townspeople erupted in whispers, amazement spreading like wildfire. Humans had healed a dragon, no, they had saved one, and now the oldest, most powerful dragons in history were acknowledging it. Fear melted into awe, into pride, into hope. Celera moved closer to Kale, nudging him with her snout. She rumbled softly, a sound that shook the hearts of everyone nearby. Then she raised her wings slightly, casting light over the settlement. It was a signal to the elders. The humans had acted with courage, skill, and heart. They had shown that humans were not merely fragile creatures, but beings capable of greatness beyond imagination. Kale looked at Rylan, his eyes shining. "You've changed everything," he said. "Not just for my mother, for all of us." Rylan swallowed, the enormity of the moment settling on him. "We just did what we had to do," he said quietly. "Sometimes, that's enough to change the world." The elders lifted their heads, wings stretching wide, casting massive shadows over the town. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, they took off, circling the settlement once, twice, then disappearing into the horizon. Their presence had been a test, and humans had passed. Kale knew this. The message was clear: humans were no longer just survivors. They were allies, worthy of trust and respect in a galaxy that had long underestimated them. The townspeople began to cheer quietly, some laughing in disbelief. Humans had faced the impossible and succeeded. Kale hugged Celera lightly, feeling her strength fully return under his claws. "Mother, look at what they did. Humans, they are amazing." Celera rumbled, nudging Rylan gently, and Kale could see it clearly. She trusted him, respected him, and acknowledged the debt owed to his courage and ingenuity. The humans had risked their lives, faced the unknown, and healed what no one else could. That act had changed the balance of power, at least in the eyes of dragons. Rylan finally allowed himself to relax, leaning against the workshop wall. "I never thought I'd be kneeling to a dragon," he murmured, "but I guess they kneel to courage, no matter the size of the creature offering it." Kale laughed softly. "Not just courage. Ingenuity. Heart. Humans have all of that, even if we're small." The morning light grew stronger, illuminating Solara's shining scales and the town around them. Humans had saved a dragon, earned the respect of elders, and proved their strength in a way no one would forget. For Kale, for Rylan, and for everyone in the settlement, this day would be remembered forever, not as the day a dragon was healed, but as the day humans proved they were extraordinary. And in that quiet, golden moment, Kale understood something he had always believed but had never seen so clearly: humans could face the impossible, change the world, and even earn the respect of beings thought beyond reach. The wind carried whispers of awe and hope through the town, and somewhere in the distant mountains, the elders' wings beat steadily, carrying the tale of one human's courage across the skies. For Kale, Rylan, Celera, and all who had witnessed it, the impossible had become reality. Humanity had fought, humans had triumphed, and dragons had learned to respect what they once underestimated.